My name is Stuart Whittle. My remit in Weightmans is that I am Head of Information Services. I have been with Weightmans for a long time. I've been there for almost 17 years. The last 5 or 6 I have been purely involved in running and delivering information systems for Weightmans. Weightmans is a national law practice. It's been in existence for over 100 years now. We've undergone some fairly rapid expansion in the last 3 to 4 years. We now have over 920 people, of which 100 are partners. We're based in 5 offices in the UK, Manchester, Liverpool, Birmingham, Leicester and London. We have a very sort of wide-ranging client base. Where we are trying to position ourselves is to be a dominant advisor to the insurance industry, providing advice to the healthcare industry, providing advice around and to local authorities, and a big commercial player as well. As a consequence of that, we have a rich heritage of clients. We have people like the Northwest Forces Consortium, we have Motor Insurers Bureau, Cooperative Group, including the bank and the insurance company. We have people like Veolia, Waste Management, and so we have quite an extensive client base. Our focus really is on quality. We are one of the largest private practice firms to have Lexel accreditation, and we drive our quality procedures through technology. We are and have been over the last 3 to 4 years becoming a very technology-led business. We also are very big on teamwork. We try and structure ourselves around our teams, and the intention behind all of that in terms of being technology-led, in terms of the quality standards that we have, in terms of the teamwork, is to be ultimately to deliver the services that the clients want. We're very client-focused in terms of what we do for our client base. The challenges that we had with our old phone system were around the fact essentially it was legacy kit. We had a mix of analog and digital cards. We were buying new digital cards, we were buying digital phones. You cannot get new digital phones anymore, so we were buying what was to me quite expensive second-hand kit. One of my frustrations really with that is that we were essentially buying kit that was obsolete. There was clearly going to come a point where it was going to get increasingly difficult to buy that second-hand kit, and we needed to do something about it. We also were starting to get demands from the business that was going to involve me buying more hardware on top of legacy kit. So, for example, things like telephone call recording, and yes, the system that you would buy, you would be able to reconfigure, but there would be work involved in getting it to work with our existing kit. There were things around a TAPI integration that we were looking with, and that was essentially not economic with the kit that we had, and also there are areas of our business that were starting to need or get into and starting to think about sort of more call centre type operations, which historically we hadn't really looked at. The challenges in terms of actually putting IP in for me really were around trying to persuade the board that it was worth the investment. At a very sort of fundamental level, what I would be saying to the board is, we've got a phone system that works. I would like to spend an awful lot of money replacing it with a phone system that works. And put in those sorts of terms, it's not a particularly attractive sell. And although I'd wanted to do it for 3 or 4 years, I just couldn't make the figures stack up in such a way that I would even be prepared to go to the board to say, look, this is the sort of thing we need to do in order to move with our kit. There were a number of reasons, really. I mean, for me, I'm not entirely sure who says it, but business is about relationships, and it really is about that. And I had an existing relationship with an account manager. I'd been fairly upfront and honest with him in terms of saying that, things like, how are you going to be able to sell me this? Help me sell to the board. I know we have to do it, but help me sell to the board. Replacing telephone kit with a telephone kit that works, and over a period of 3 or 4 years, we'd met, we'd talked, we'd discussed it, and every time sort of my frustration came up. And it was really, it really was a chance meeting where the account manager came to me and said, same sort of thing, the same sort of conversation that we have. When are you thinking about putting IP into it? And I had the same sort of conversation about, well, it's something I wanted to do, but the figures simply don't stack up. And to be honest, I said almost jokingly, here's what we pay now in terms of support and maintenance and additional hardware, looking at our growth. The only way I'm ever going to port voice over IP, the only way I'm ever going to be able to sell it to the board is if you can give it to me for less than I am currently paying in terms of cash out of the business. Genuinely at the time, I didn't expect anything to come of it. Much to my surprise, the account manager came back with a deal that wasn't quite less than what we were currently paying, but when we took telephony into as a product as a whole, including line rental and telephone call charges and the sorts of things we were doing at that, I was able to say to the board, look, if you treat this thing as one product, if you treat telephony as one thing, take all these 3 things into consideration, and the Mitel leasing and the deal that we'd done, the deal that the account manager had proposed, then actually we could do this. We could replace the infrastructure. And in terms of cash out of the business, now I'm not an accountant, so I don't know how the accountants deal with the various leasing, but in terms of actually cash out of the business, it was going to cost us less than we were currently paying. And that was one of the reasons why we went for Mitel. Plus, the legal industry is quite close-knit certainly in terms of IT. People talk, and I know a lot of my peers have the Mitel kit, they like it, it works, and that's kind of what you want from your systems they work. There are quite a number of benefits that the Mitel Communications Director has brought to Weightmans. Some of the things I'm going to talk about are seemingly trivial, but actually they were quite important to the people to whom I'm delivering a service in information systems and Weightmans, i.e. the fee earners and the secretaries and the people who are using the telephones. I'll come on to them in a bit, but the fundamental thing for me was the ability to have a platform in place where I could simply meet the demands of the business by simply saying, yes, it's just another license. How much do you want to pay? How many licenses do you need? And you can do whatever it happens to be. That was where I really wanted to get to. That was the benefits of the business. Now, immediately, those aren't things that the business sees. But it sounds quite trivial. But one of the things I've learned in the last 5 or 6 years of working in information systems in Weightmans is that sometimes it's the trivial things that are quite important to people. If the trivial thing is something that happens to you every day, 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times a day, then it becomes a big deal. And one of the issues we had is because we had this mix of analog and digital cards, we had a mix of analog and digital phones. So some people had caller line identification, some people didn't. Some people had the light on the phone that told them they had a voicemail, some people didn't. And so there was quite a lot of agitation about people wanting the same functionality. Our user base was not very happy with the existing voicemail system. They found it quite cumbersome to use. They found it quite difficult to get into and out of. And so at a very sort of simple level, some of the benefits were actually to be able to provide everyone with the same level of service. So they all got caller line identification. They all got the light on the phone that tells them they got a voicemail message. And actually, whilst I say that's trivial, it's not, because if that voicemail is from a client who's expecting an urgent response, the fact that you get back to your desk from whatever you've been doing, you can see that there is a voicemail message is actually quite important. The other benefits to us were around hot desking. We have hot desking in place, so actually we have. I don't know, I've never done a scientific analysis, but I reckon there's about 25% of our user base that is very mobile. And there are maybe 10% who never sit in the same office more than a couple of days a week, and the ability for them simply just to log in and nobody necessarily needs to know where they are to actually find them, I think has been useful. And again, it perhaps seems quite trivial, but for whatever reason, we in Weightmans, we seem to move around a lot. We move offices. I have moved an office every year for the last 4 years. And we also do a lot of internal moves. The barrier to doing that, the thing that has always taken the time on the day of the move or over the weekend, has been repatching all the phones. Patching all the phones for an office move, even for some of our smaller offices, 90, 100 people, can take 2 or 3 people a day, day and a half to get it right, test it, play with it. When we have big groups of people moving around because for whatever reason, we changed the way the teams are structured. Again, it can take 8 or 9 hours sometimes, particularly in Liverpool, where I had offices where we have sort of 450, 500 people. It can take a significant amount of time to actually have to repatch everything. We've saved a lot of time. Essentially, people become self-sufficient in moves. As long as there is a desk and a PC and a phone there, we don't have to do anything. It doesn't need to be scheduled. It doesn't. So people can. It saved a lot of time in terms of time and aggro and difficulty in terms of moves. But fundamentally, as I say at the start, the important thing for me, looking at it at the sort of strategic level, is to have that platform in place so I can meet the demands of the business very, very quickly. There are quite a few things that I really want to have a look at some point. One of the things I think is quite interesting is the mobile twinning. So you only have one phone number and you can pick it up on your mobile, you pick it up on your landline, whatever it happens to be. That may be a bit of a change for Weightmans because historically we've considered geography quite important, our local clients. So giving everyone an 0844 number, not sure how that's going to go down, but actually I think overall the benefits outweigh the change in the fact that people don't get a local number anymore. We have 2 specific areas of the business that have, one's relatively new with the last year or so, where it's a new product in particular. They're relatively small at the moment, so they're handling the volumes of calls that they're having to deal with in the sort of traditional manner. But there is clearly going to come a time where they are going to have to look at far more call centre type operations. And again, as I was looking at putting a platform in place for the future, it became important to be able to have something where I could buy 20, 25, 80, whatever it happened to be, licenses and deliver that bit of the functionality to that bit of the business and keeping everything else the same, and everyone else not having to buy new kit, not having to invest a lot of money in infrastructure to deliver that bit of functionality for that area of the business. We don't really have a formal home working policy, but we do have an infrastructure in place which allows people to work from home. There are bits missing in it in terms of what we can provide, and one of those things has been the telephone. Again, what I'd like to look at in the future is being able to provide people with a handset which they simply plug into their home broadband router, and there they are. They've logged in as if they're from home. So we can actually, again, comes back to the sort of platform, having a platform in place that allows me to deliver easily the sorts of things that the business wants to do. So it now enables us more effectively to deliver home working should we want to go down that route. I would absolutely recommend Mitel products. For me, what I've done is replace a phone system that worked with a phone system that worked. Yeah, it just worked. And that's really what you want from that sort of kit. You want to be able to switch it on and have it work. The other thing that's important to me is the relationship, and Mitel are good people to work with, and they are people with whom I have a lot of trust and confidence in. So yes, absolutely, I would recommend Mitel.